Well, we'll also try to understand why, these key US races matter. It's important to understand that millions of people are voting in the United States for local elections in the first major electoral test of US President Donald Trump's second term. Of course, the question that lingers is why are these key US races important? Why exactly do they matter? Let's also walk you through why they matter. Now, it's also important to understand, like I mentioned, that this is the first test for Trump 2.0. Of course, these elections serve as a litmus test for US President Donald Trump's popularity and the effectiveness of his policies. Now, this, of course, is since his return to the White House. Now, these elections could be a great reminder or, some sort of a, reality check on what exactly the sentiment is with regard to the dispensation. Now, it's also important to understand that this is also important to see what exactly the Republicans' goal is, because, the Republicans aim to retain gains in the blue states. So it's important to understand that while the Republicans aim to retain their gains in blue states, which could, of course, impact the balance of power in the Congress and, like I said, set the tone for the 2026 midterm elections. Now, it's also important to understand that while that is, sort of prevalent for the Republicans, talking about the Democrats, this could be a potential comeback for the Democrats. It's important to understand that a strong showing by Democrats could mark, in fact, a major turning point for the party, potentially paving the way for a comeback in the 2026 midterms. It's also important to understand, like I was just talking to my colleague about this, there are several points at play in this. Of course, the US government shutdown is also something that's extremely important, given the fact that the Senate has rejected the House-passed short-term government funding bill for the 14th time, ensuring that the ongoing shutdown will become the longest in US's history. Of course, there is a lot of voter sentiment around it as well. The ongoing shutdown has led to frustration among voters, potentially even impacting the election's outcome. Now, federal funding is something that's also extremely important, given that Trump's threat to cut federal funding for cities like New York could also sway voters' decisions. So these are the important points that we're looking at this point. Of course, there's a lot of things at play at the moment. There's also, one has to see what exactly the impact of these elections would be. It's important to understand that this will be the first major litmus test for US President Donald Trump and his popularity in his second term. Meanwhile, here's a report from New York by PTI reporter Yoshita Singh. Also take a look.
Today, Tuesday, November 4th, is a significant day here in the United States as the country goes to polls. It is election day in the US, the first significant election in the second term of US President Donald Trump. However, all eyes are here in New York City on the mayor's race, where Indian-origin Zohran Mamdani has emerged as a clear frontrunner to win the mayor's election. Mamdani had registered a significant victory in the primaries, defeating political heavyweight former New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo and clinching the nomination. President Trump, who has been very critical of Mamdani and his policies, on election eve on Monday endorsed officially Cuomo, saying that if Mamdani wins the New York City mayor's election, it will be a social and economic disaster for the city, and the city's survival will be at risk. Trump has also said that he will be forced to send only the bare minimum federal funds required for New York City. Mamdani has said that Trump is threatened by his campaign. Also on the ballots are several members of the Indian-American community and South Asians who are vying for various political posts across the country, including Ghazala Hashmi, who is running for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, and Ravi Bhalla, the former Hoboken mayor in New Jersey, who is now running for New Jersey State Assembly. The elections are crucial, coming 1 year after the 2024 presidential elections and a year before the midterm elections that will set the mood for where the country is going. As polls close today on November 4th, year 2025, it will shine a spotlight on the mood in the nation, with both the Democratic and the Republican parties vying to strengthen their foothold and ensure that they have a significant number of seats with them as the country then heads into the midterm elections, which will again be a barometer of where the Trump's presidency is going. This is Yoshita Singh in New York City.